With us now, Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty, member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and former ambassador to Japan. So, Senator, welcome. Thanks for coming on today. What'd you think of the trip? Seems like it went all pretty well, according to the deals that were made and the friendship that we saw.
Indeed, it did, Emma. I think it was an extraordinarily successful trip to Japan. And I just got off the phone with our Charge d'Affaires, the acting ambassador in South Korea. Another great trip there as well. I spoke with our U.S. ambassador to Japan, George Glass, last night. He's doing a terrific job. I don't think the meeting in Japan could have gone any better. And if you think about it, Emma, we have more U.S. military stationed in Japan than in any other nation in the world. There's a reason for that. Japan is in a very difficult neighborhood. You've got North Korea, Russia, and China at your doorstep. You've seen what started happening in the Taiwan Strait, particularly after the Biden administration failed in Afghanistan. The sorties increased. You saw what's happening in the Philippines, more and more aggression by the CCP. What we need today is a stronger alliance with Japan more than ever. And I will include South Korea in that alliance network as well. And it's happening. President Trump is there to advance our interest. I think Foreign Affairs Chairman Brian Mast did a terrific job just a minute ago, explaining how President Trump is acting in America's interest as he strengthens these relationships. I'm very optimistic about where this is going.
And speaking of optimism, there's a lot in Japan right now, a lot of energy, a lot of excitement in terms of the newly minted prime minister. Time magazine put out an article entitled "Why Japan's New First Female PM May Actually Be Able to Win Over Trump." Here it is on your screen. It goes on to say she worked as a congressional aide for then Congresswoman Pat Schroeder in the late 1980s, giving her a deeper knowledge of the U.S. And while former Prime Minister Ishiba was more dovish towards China, Takaishi is seen as a China hawk ideologically. She is much more closely aligned with Trump on issues like immigration, trade with China, and artificial intelligence. Takaishi will likely praise Trump on his immigration policy. In terms of policy and personality, talk to us about that. It seems like a warm welcome, obviously, between these two leaders, the newly minted prime minister and President Trump. But more so for what this means for Japan and the first female prime minister with their culture, with their political realm. What does that mean for Japan and for the United States?
I think it's all positive. I spoke with President Trump last week about Prime Minister Takaishi. I explained to him I thought she would be an extraordinarily strong partner. She's a protege of Prime Minister Abe. I don't think there was a better relationship that President Trump enjoyed with another world leader than the one he enjoyed with Prime Minister Abe in his first administration, a very close friend of President Trump and of mine. Sadly, Prime Minister Abe was assassinated, but Prime Minister Takaishi, a close friend, close ally. In fact, you might have seen it. She presented Prime Minister Abe's favorite putter to President Trump when he arrived in Japan, a touching moment to all. I think the foundation is there. I was just in Japan meeting with CEOs from Japanese companies, from South Korean companies, from American companies, looking for opportunities to continue to deepen our economic relationship. And that is critical. Our economic security between the three nations is absolutely critical as we work on our national security. The deal that was struck here in Japan with respect to critical rare earth minerals that are coming in, critical magnets that we're trying to deal with, and President Trump's meeting, with Xi Jinping tomorrow is going to be, I think, very telling in that regard. But we are moving lockstep with our allies in that region, and I'm very optimistic that Prime Minister Takaishi sees eye to eye with President Trump in terms of the strategic importance of our national security relationship and our economic relationships.
And that'll be on full display tomorrow, right, when President Trump is set to meet with Xi Jinping. But you mentioned the gift of the golf club. Clearly, that went over pretty well with President Trump, a huge fan of golf. There was also another recognition that the prime minister bestowed on President Trump, and that was the nomination for the 2026 Nobel Peace Prize. But apparently, Senator, it's not going over so well with some Japanese officials. I wanted to show you a headline from the South China Morning Post, which is kind of interesting just to consider here. Japan's PM slammed for currying favor with Trump over Nobel Peace Prize plan. Takaishi's intention to recommend Trump for the accolade has even drawn criticisms within her Liberal Democratic Party. Any thoughts on this one, Senator?
Well, I've seen this movie before. Prime Minister Abe was also supportive of President Trump receiving the Nobel Prize after the Abraham Accords. Any other president in the world would have received the Nobel Prize for achieving something as monumental as what happened in the Middle East under President Trump's first term with the Abraham Accords. Now, what we've seen is, again, a magnificent act of peacemaking, not only in the Middle East, but around the world. The president just signed a peace deal between Cambodia and Thailand. That wouldn't have happened with any other president. I don't know what it is with the Nobel Committee. I don't think President Trump is overly optimistic that they'll ever see their way past whatever tendencies they have, whatever liberal leanings they may have. But any committee that would have given the prize to Barack Obama before he even took office, I think has got a serious credibility problem. I think it was absolutely right that the Prime Minister stepped up and did this again, reflecting the same sentiment that Prime Minister Abe had back when I served as ambassador. We'll see what the Nobel Committee does with this, but I don't think the criticisms are fair. Japanese politics are tough, just like they are in any other country. Criticism is always abundant in this world, but I think that she's right on point. I don't think it was to curry favor. I think it was an acknowledgement of something real, something significant, and something no other president could have delivered.
And I'll also consider the source of where this outlet, this news, and where it's coming from China. Senator Bill Hagerty joining us from the Capitol. Senator, good to see you. Thanks for that.
Thank you.